Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Heavy Metal History. In this episode, we're going to be continuing on with our journey through the history of Black Sabbath. And for this one, we're going to be going into the band's next album, Paranoid. So without further ado, let's just get into it. November and December of 1969. Most of the songs that would end up on Paranoid evolved, like a primordial wailing, during onstage improvisational jams in the fall of 1969 in a music club in Zurich, Switzerland. They played at what was then known as the Beat Club, also called the Hirschen Club, on the ground floor of the Hotel Hirschen in Zurich's Old Town. The engagement included 7 45-minute sets per day for 6 weeks. Now, Black Sabbath didn't have much material back then, so they played only one song per set, but for 45 minutes. So the Beat Club gave a sonorous birth to Paranoid in its infantile stages. In the classic album's documentary on the making of Paranoid, guitarist Tony Iommi recalls that, quote,
War Pigs, in fact, came from one of those jams in one of the clubs.
During the song Warning, we used to jam that out, and that particular night we were jamming it out, and Tony just went da-da. I mean, well, that's good.
And in the same documentary, Iommi demonstrates his approach to the guitar solo in the song, explaining that, quote,
when it gets to the solo, I try to always keep the bottom, like as the beginning, you try and keep the bottom string ringing so it fills it out like so.
What we were doing, we were writing and doing them live because we'd put a new song in when we wrote them, so we'd road tested them and stage tested them, although we were singing different lyrics probably.
Paranoid was developed on the road. Rehearsal before gigs, sound checks.
We used to write songs in the van, going to the gig, get to the gig, and I would sing any old shit, as long as I got a melody with you.
I'll come back to Paranoid in a moment, but the band itself would then continue to play shows up until the official start date of the tour for Black Sabbath, which started on February 5th, 1970. So between June 16th and June 21st of 1970, just 4 months after the album was released, Paranoid was recorded at Regent Sound Studios and Island Studios in London, England.
I think we were only 2 days in Regent doing the basic tracks. Again, they'd got all the material written, except I don't think they'd really written all the melodies and the lyrics. It was just come in, probably another 2 sessions, 10 till 10, and out we came with the basic tracks for the album. We didn't bother to do any overdubs there because we knew we were taking them to Island Studios, where they had a brand spanking new 16-track machine.
Ozzy Osbourne on vocals, Tony Iommi on guitar and keyboards, Geezer Butler on the bass, Bill Ward on drums. It was produced by Roger Bain, engineered by Tony Allen and Brian Humphreys, and the original design and photography was by Keith. The album is 8 tracks over 41 minutes and 51 seconds. And the track listing on this album is Luke Swall and War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Iron Man, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, Fairies Wear Boots, and Jack the Stripper. Now, this album's first recording session was June of 1970. During this time, some management issues kind of led to a change in who managed the band, so the band could start to survive off touring and playing shows. Bill Ward explains further about this change, saying, quote, we'd done the Paranoid demo and moved managers to Tony Hall and Patrick Meehan. We were pretty much hand to mouth before that point, and the only time we started to see any money was when we hooked up with Patrick. We'd get £500 after a gig, and we'd be like, fuck, you're kidding. We hadn't seen that much money in 2 years. In 1970, that was huge money. And when we wanted money, we'd just go to Pat and ask for some. There was no accounting or anything. So the band got down to business recording the new songs, and it was here that their rigorous schedule of hundreds of gigs per year came into play, leaving the material efficient and indelible. And Bill says, quote, we were very tight. We've been playing together for over 2 years. We've been through Germany and Switzerland, and when we played together, we wanted to improve and be really good. You have to remember, this is a very good live band coming into the studio for Paranoid. The producer, Roger Bain, has to be praised too, but I think we delivered our aggression and onstage dynamics in the studio. Perhaps not completely, but mostly. And thanks to that disciplined approach, the songwriting went really smoothly. And Geezer Butler has cited Paranoid as one of the albums that stood out the most to him.
I don't know what it is. That was the magic of the band. It's like he'd come out with a riff and we'd all played the same thing all at the same time together, as if we all knew exactly what was coming next.
It was still jamming, but it was becoming more as a team writing.
And speaking of the album's title track, it was kind of written as an afterthought.
With that was Roger Bain saying to us, look, we need 4.5 minutes or 4 and 5 minutes, just go and jam something.
We knew we had to fill 3 or 4 minutes, and that's all we were concerned with. We didn't go, we've got to have a single. It was an afterthought, Paranoid.
So they just wanted a short song. And we'd never done short songs. It was always long, So, oh, God.
So we came back from the pub, and we came back into the Regent Sound studio, and Tony straps his guitar on and starts playing the opening to what is now Paranoid. And we're all looking around, and everybody's scrambling, going, I'm looking for my sticks. And, oh, God.
He had the guitar, he had the incredible knack of just coming out with riff after riff after riff.
I think it was about 20 minutes. 20 minutes to cook it up and basically have it ready. We laid the track. Oz already had some ideas going on with melodies.
Oz is singing the final melody, but you'll hear the lyrics have actually got nothing to do with Paranoid at all.
People say my mind's all things with things that you can't see me now. Why are you on my mind all day long? I can't think straight no more.
It's pretty obvious he's just riffing it, just to get an idea for the melody in his head. I don't think he's even singing off a lyric sheet. I think he's just making them up as he goes along.
Everyone is saying I'm mad because you're the only girl that I've ever had. I love you, but you don't want to know me, but I think you're great and I want to see you smile into my face. Oh, yeah.
And also in 2013, Butler told Mojo Magazine in an interview that, quote, the song Paranoid was about depression because I didn't really know the difference between depression and paranoia.
And I used to go through a lot of depression when I was a teenager, so that's where the lyrics from Paranoid came from, because I couldn't relate to anybody when I was getting in my depressions.
Butler was also dead set against the song because he thought it too closely resembled Led Zeppelin's Communication Breakdown, with the bassist admitting, quote, I thought it was so much like that we couldn't possibly get away with it. They were our favorite band at that time. And rumor has it that after recording his vocals for Paranoid, frontman Ozzy Osbourne turned to his bandmates in Black Sabbath and said, quote, what the fuck does Paranoid mean? And in his book, Iron Man, My Journey Through Heaven and Hell with Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi confirmed the story, saying that he and Ozzy probably had no idea what the word paranoid meant at that time. Now, the album's opening track, War Pigs, was originally intended to be called Walpurgis.
Originally, that was going to be called War Piggers. Something to do with black magic, because we all started reading Dennis Wheatley books,
It was then changed to War Pigs, which the band intended to name the album until it was changed to Paranoid after the record company became convinced that the song of the same name had potential as a single. Butler explains this in an interview, and he says, quote,
I wanted to write a song called Walpurgis, the satanic version of Christmas. Write it about that Satan isn't a spiritual thing, it's warmongers. That's who the real Satanists are, all these people that are running the banks and the world and trying to get the working class to fight the wars for them. We sent it off to the record company. No, we're not going to call it that, too satanic.
And in Ozzy's autobiography, he recalls, quote, It was originally going to be called Walpurgis, which was a term for a black magic wedding or something. Then we changed it to War Pigs, and Geezer came up with these heavy-duty lyrics about death and destruction. And, no wonder we never got any chicks at our gigs. Geezer just wasn't interested in your average I'd Love You pop song. Geezer also liked to put a lot of topical stuff like Vietnam references into our songs. He had his ear to the ground, Geezer did.
Geezer's really thundering away underneath, listen.
Geezer's great. I mean, he's, again, bass players don't seem to exist like that. They actually play instead of playing one note, He'd be playing all over the place and bending the strings. And that's what we got into of on the riffs and stuff. I'd play and I'd bend the string and Geezer'd bend the string. So we'd play that to make it bigger, to make it a wider sound.
And the song Iron Man was originally titled Iron Bloke, and upon hearing Iommi play the main guitar riff for the first time, Osborne remarked in awe that it sounded, quote, like a big iron bloke walking around.
What started the whole thing off with that was I'd done this, I thought of, something real, which like a monster, real plodding and real evil. And I came up with this by hitting the two strings. And that sort of caused this vibe of...
The title was eventually later changed to Iron Man as Geezer Butler composed the lyrics.
I remember me and Ozzy were walking down the road one day. Tony just come up with the Iron Man riff, and Ozzy was going, I'm going to call it. And I think he just came out with it sounds like a big iron bloke walking about. And I just said, oh yeah, it's a good title, Iron Bloke.
And the riff to Iron Man is probably one of the most iconic heavy metal guitar riffs ever, with Osborne saying in his memoir that, quote, Tony Iommi turned out to be one of the greatest heavy rock riff makers of all time. Whenever we went to the studio, we'd challenge him to beat his last riff, and he'd come up with something like Iron Man and blow everyone away.
It was all about the future of the world. There was a lot of, I was really into pollution and all that. You could just see that a lot of things going wrong in the world, and nobody was saying anything about it.
And Geezer Butler wrote the lyrics as a story of a man who time travels into the future and sees the apocalypse. In the process of returning to the present, he is turned to steel by a magnetic field, and his attempts to warn the populace are ignored and mocked. This causes Iron Man to become angry and vengeful, causing the destruction seen in his vision. Electric Funeral also kind of contains apocalyptic imagery dealing with more nuclear warfare. And Iommi remembers that at the time, most bands, he says, quote, it was all flowers in your hair, and we wanted to sing and play about on the other side of life.
I just started playing this riff, and then we thought, well, it was so quiet, that, and Bill liked it, and really liked it, and so Bill just started joining in on the little congas he had. So I just play. And that was basically the main part of the song, and we just sort of played it through with Bill playing congas on and Ozzy singing.
We liked that. It was nice and relaxing, good to get stoned to. So that's where it came in.
Planet Caravan is kind of an unusually quiet song which showcased that the band was capable of more than just crushing guitar riffs. Tony Iommi admitted that the band had doubts about the mellow song, telling in an interview, quote,
Planet Caravan was very different to what we'd done before. And it was almost one of those, should we do this,
Just came up with that in the studio, and it was really laid back, so I didn't want to come out with the usual love crap. So it was about floating through the universe with your loved one, instead of let's go down the pub and have some chips or whatever. And that's what it was about, just taking a spaceship out into the stars and having the ultimate romantic weekend.
And Hand of Doom dealt with the problems of soldiers returning from the Vietnam War strung out on heroin, which the band had witnessed firsthand when they played 2 Army American bases. But as Butler has said in an interview in 2010, quote,
and they were in terrible state and telling me like that a lot of them were doing heroin. Nothing on the news about this. There was no programs telling you that the US troops in Vietnam were to get through that horrible war. Well, like fixing up and all this kind of thing. It just stuck in my head, and when we did Hand of Doom, that's what I wrote it about.
The vocal on the Hand of Doom for me is really classic Ozzy. It's really well delivered, it's got the menace in it, and it's brilliantly phrased. It just sounds spot on to me. You know, Hand of Doom, he just got it. He captured that one particularly well, I think. I like it, classy vocal.
And according to Geezer Butler, Bill Ward's drum solo, Rat Salad, resulted from the band having to play 8 3 to 4 hour spots a night in Europe early in their career, saying, quote, Bill used to fill out a whole 45 minutes doing a drum solo just to get rid of that 45 minutes. He continues saying, quote, I have no idea where the title came from, though. And, while Geezer may have now forgotten where the title Rat Salad came from, in 1971, he was on record stating it came from a joke about Bill Ward's hair having not been combed.
So Ozzy wrote the song Fairies Wear Boots about these skinheads, calling them fairies, because they had, the big Doc Martin boots on that they were kicking all over us with. And that's where it came from.
Just a silly little lyric, But it's fun,
That's what Ozzy's lyrics were, though. He'd think like of a thing and then wanted to say something about skinheads like fairies because in boots, and then like, how else am I going to finish it? So it goes off on a totally different tangent about being stoned or something.
It's about LSD, I think, because we started messing around with that kind of stuff.
After the album recording, Black Sabbath returned to Birmingham and their endless gigging schedule. The final mix of Paranoid was very much ahead of its time. Ward has stated in an interview that, quote, it's a realistic album. We were blacking out the microphones a lot from slamming on the drums so that the sound could use a lot of improvement. But it's a natural sound. It's what we did back then. So let's talk a little bit about the album art. Because the label wanted to rush out the follow-up as quickly as possible, it relayed the War Pigs title to Macmillan, who got to work making test shots. Macmillan says, quote, I don't think we had the music at that point. I seem to remember it being a bit of a rush and that they needed something quickly, so we just went and did it. He had taken his photo assistant Roger Brown to Black Park, which he describes as the backlot of Pinewood Studios near Slough, where Dr. No and many other James Bond movies were made. He says, quote, that was my go-to location for things like that. He says they had visited a local prop shop and gotten Brown everything he needed to be a, quote, war pig, a sword, a shield, and a pig mask, though any shots of him in a mask no longer survive, unfortunately. He continues on saying, quote, we shot it at night and we did quite a lot of experimental stuff. We used ultraviolet light and an ultraviolet flash so that everything was fluorescing, basically. Some of the pig mask pictures were very much stronger than that particular image on the cover. I don't find that image very, very strong. I find it quite weak, actually. But because unfortunately, as Macmillan says, quote, they were in a blind panic to get something out. Someone from the label took his test shots and placed it on the front of the album. And to make matters worse, the album title changed. And Macmillan also recalls, quote, it's just slightly embarrassing, to be honest. The fact that War Pigs theme images ran with the Paranoid title, there was no way we could do a reshoot. It was just a matter of just getting it out there and going with it. Now, the inner gatefold contains a photo of the band relaxing in a park that Macmillan shot, but has no recollection of taking the photo, saying, quote, I used to do band shots every single day. The sleeve photography, the gatefold stuff, is the stuff I remember. Everything else tends to be a little bit of a blur from the 60s, to be honest. Once again, Sandy Field did the type treatment with a new Black Sabbath logo and font for Paranoid, and the record went on to become a massive hit when it came out in September of 1970, just 7 months after the release of Black Sabbath. The Paranoid single came out in July and quickly became a hit, and Warner Brothers, the band's US label, decided it was a better album title than War Pigs and requested that the band change it.
Paranoid, again, was wasn't really going to be as a single. We wasn't intending on doing a single. We were in the studio to write an album, the Paranoid album, which was going to be originally called War Pigs, but that's why the cover was with a chap with a sword and a shield. But they banned it from being called War Pigs, so we called it Paranoid, which had nothing to do with the cover at all. But anyway, we went in to record the album, and in the lunch break, I didn't go out to eat with the others, I just stayed at the studio, I just came up with this riff, this Paranoid, and when everybody came back, I said, well, let's just put this down, so we put it down, and that was it. It wasn't intended as a single or anything, it was just another one for the album, but it did come as a...
And so we had this cover done of a guy with a shield and a sword, and to go with War Pigs, and they wouldn't let us use it. It was banned. They banned it.
I think they were offended by War Pigs, you know, and in America at the time, it's no wonder they were offended by it.
We did not want to do it. We were in the midst of a war ourselves in this country, and what their reasoning was not that important to me. I knew we weren't going to call it War Pigs.
We didn't have any say whatsoever in album stuff.
It was.
And so now the band is continuing to tour, so we're going to talk a little bit about that tour and look at the tour dates. According to Iommi, one of the stupidest things they did was haul their entire PA system instead of renting one in the US. Not realizing the US had a different electrical system, Sabbath promptly blew out the power in the first place that they played. Black Sabbath would play in 10 cities with over 18 shows for the next 5 weeks. According to one music critic, they blew headliner Rod Stewart in the faces off of the Fillmore East stage. And according to Tony Iommi, he says, quote, "You know, when we won, the crowd went absolutely mental. And then Rod Stewart came on and they began throwing things at him. It was just incredible. And from then on, we became like the underground band in America." There's so many bands that they toured with in those early days that just make absolutely no sense. But there was not a lot of heavy bands like them, so they kind of just had to tour with these bands. Originally, they were supposed to open for Alice Cooper at the infamous Whiskey A Go-Go Club in West Hollywood, but Alice Cooper canceled and Sabbath went from opener to headliner for their 5 dates with 2 shows a night. And at the Fillmore West, they shared a 4-night stand with future Eagles guitarist Joe Walsh and his band, the James Gang. Iommi said, quote, "We did the Fillmore West in San Francisco with them, and Joe Walsh was smoking this bloody angel dust right before the gig." And Geezer says, quote, "All just has a puff of that," and then Ozzy joined him. They thought they were just smoking a joint. But maybe the most significant name they played with was still a relatively unknown at the time, and that came on their last date before heading back to England when they played in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Their opening act was the Still Mill Band featuring a young Bruce Springsteen. Overall, the tour was a huge success, and Tony has described it as, quote, "a high-pressure promotional tour." At the end of November 1970, the band returned to England and immediately started a mini tour of Europe from December 5th in Liverpool, England to December 19th in Paris at La Olympia. They would have 12 days to rest before recording their heaviest album. Hey, thank you so much for checking out these videos. If this is something you like and are more interested in hearing, please hit like and subscribe on the channel. I've been doing this for like 10 years now. A lot of this is kind of brand new for me, but I would really like to kind of grow the channel, so any support is really, really appreciated. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.